need to educate our friends. We need to educate our siblings and our parents. We don't need to have any more pictures up on this screen.
It was 9 short weeks ago, this arena full of students empowered to make a difference in their community and challenged to come up with solutions in the drug epidemic our state is facing. Tonight, 4 groups of students from the Greater Manchester area are sharing their solutions, their views on why it's happening, and their ideas on how to stop it.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Vaughn. Welcome to our State of Addiction Student Solutions Special. We're coming to you tonight from the New Hampshire Institute of Politics on the campus of St. Anselm College. Coming up in just a moment, we'll introduce you to our panel invested in finding a solution to our state's drug crisis. And then we'll welcome the students. But first, we want to share our focus for the next hour.
These are unprecedented times. The rules no longer apply, and childhood innocence is proving to be short-lived.
So, yeah, we're talking to kids younger than ever before. We're talking to them about opioids. We're talking about fentanyl and heroin because the kids are hearing it anyway.
And too often living it. For many of them, the crisis has already hit. Daughters and sons exposed to the dangerous and often deadly consequences of drug abuse.
Their mom or dad is already suffering with drug addiction, and the teachers are relaying to us that the kids are acting out or they're having trouble with classes because of that.
Middle school is now ground zero. Officers visit classrooms, share conversations, build trust. The more they know about what these kids see and feel, the better they can figure out how to reach them.
We need to hear their ideas. We need to hear how they look at the problem and what tempts them. From their point of view, what makes them try that drug for the first time.
There is also a big shift happening. The generational parts are becoming equal. The future depends on the youngest minds being part of the solution.
I never would have thought of having pretty much a summit where everybody gets together and then the kids sit down and give us the results. This is what you guys need to do to help us. That's pretty cool.
They are the only ones who know what it's like to grow up right now in the age of deadly overdoses and widespread addiction.
And the world's a completely different place. And I think if we're up front with them and say, we're a little long in the tooth and we're not, we're not in tune to being a child of today.
A partnership between the ages may be what can finally turn the tide in this deadly battle.
They're going to go back into their schools, to their neighborhoods, to their communities, to their after-school activity groups, and get people involved. And I know it's just going to continue. This is going to be a snowball effect here in New Hampshire.
And joining us on our panel tonight, to my right, Governor Chris Sununu, Jim Wahlberg from the Mark Wahlberg Youth Foundation, Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Northern New England DEA, John Delina, John Webb, Guidance Counselor and Youth Advisor from Goffstown High School, and Dr. John Harrison of CADCA, Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. And tonight, WMUR, along with DEA 360 and Making It Happen Coalition, are partnering with the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, or CADCA, to bring you this youth leadership event, as well as Thistle Communications. Our in-studio audience tonight includes leaders from all around the state who are focused on the communities where these students live and helping them to find solutions. So with that, we'd like to welcome our first group of students. They took part in a weekend training that was organized by our partner, CADCA. So hello, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. Let's start with each of you introducing yourselves.
Hi, I'm Ashley Backert. I'm from McLaughlin Middle School.
Hi, I'm Quincy Roy. I'm from McLaughlin Middle School.
Hi, my name is Jarlath Riley, and I go to Central.
Hi, my name is Josue Rodriguez. I also go to Central.
So tell us, what are some of the things you guys came up with collectively?
Okay, well, good evening. I'm Ashley and an 8th grader at McLaughlin Middle School, and I'm here to talk to you about prevention on substances, specifically opioids. So according to SAMHSA, which stands for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services, prevention delays onset of use. The main goal of prevention is to delay the first use of substances. Research proves that students who begin drugs before age 14 are at a higher risk to experience higher drug dependence at some point in their life compared to people who started drugs at 21 or later in their life. In addition, youth who do drugs are more likely to experience sexual and/or physical assault, unintentional injuries, memory problems, legal issues, and impaired school performance. This is a big factor in why delaying the age of drug use is critical in prevention.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Quincy Roy, an 8th grader at McLaughlin Middle School. As Ashley stated here, prevention is key in order to minimize risk factors such as social access and favorable attitudes. Social access is when you can get substances through friends, family, and social media. And favorable attitudes is when your family and peers think that it's acceptable to misuse these substances. For effective prevention programs, there are 16 principles to abide by. A few of the primary principles are prevention can be designed to be taught as early as infancy to address risk factors for substance abuse. Programs should be family-based to increase family bonding relationships and parenting skills. And these programs should be designed to address the risks that are specific to our community. These effective programs for prevention are more cost-effective than treatments for substance abuse.
Hi everyone, my name is Jarlath. So as they said, prevention is basically how to stop the problem before it begins, right? So over the weekend, Caddy Guys taught us a little bit about prevention and a certain thing called the SPF, which stands for the Strategic Prevention Framework. So SPF is a process that coalitions use to work smarter and faster to fix a problem or to stop it before it works. So that's one of the things we learned. And so now we talk about, there's 7 strategies that we like to implement to this problem. And the first one we're talking about is providing information.
All right, hey.
Oh, okay, I'm not done.
Oh, yeah, okay. My bad. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So from the first thing that we would like to implement or start is, there's parents and teachers, we feel, don't know what's happening around the community and in schools. So we want to get kids involved in PTA, school boards, town councils, because that gives, as I said, that provides the information, that gives an insight and a new perspective from the kids at their school that parents and administrators would never think to talk about or know.
Hi, my name is Josue Rodriguez. I attend Central High School. And also, if we have assemblies that include victims who have been affected by opioids, and if they could share their personal stories and how they've been affected by this drug, then they could have like a talk show type thing for an assembly and have students go up and have conversations with them. And this is really important to me because I feel as though not a lot of kids know what opioids are. And also, I want this message to get around because I personally know people who have dealt with drug addiction and have abused drugs and have even overdosed and passed away. So that's why this problem is really close to me.
And to go off what Josue said, I mean, I feel a lot of kids at our school can connect with these drug addicts that come in or people that are in recovery that tell their stories, because a lot of kids, especially at Central, have stories like that, have family members, maybe even themselves have gone through stuff like that, and they can connect. And I remember last year in assembly, and these recovery people came in, and they said, do you have any questions to the audience? And we didn't have questions because we didn't want to ask. I feel like you shouldn't just ask the questions. Like he said, have talk shows or conversations. Don't just ask kids if they want to come up, make them come up, because they need to talk about it and they need to open up and explain what they feel and how they think they can stop this.
Thank you. Excellent, excellent points. Governor, I'm gonna bring it over to you right now before we get to the rest of our panel. The kids saying the teachers and the parents don't know what's going on.
It's absolutely true. It is, unfortunately. And you know, I come at this, I am the governor of the state of New Hampshire, but I come at this as a dad. I have a 12-year-old, I have an 11-year-old in middle school, I have a 4-year-old. So we've had this discussion in our house. It's a tough discussion to have as parents, it really is. And I've seen the programs that my kids came up with through school a couple years ago. Could have been better. I think I'll just say that. As parents, I think we thought it could have been stronger. And I think what these kids are really bringing up is so powerful. The idea of really engaging. The idea of these programs that say, just say no, and here's a pamphlet, bring it home to your parents, and don't forget not to do drugs, kids. Those days are done. You got to get the caregivers involved. As a parent, would you know what to do if you thought your son or daughter had an issue? Would you know what to do when your son and daughter comes and talks to you about a friend who might have an issue? What tools and resources are out there? Who to call? Where to find the information? So the power of information in this is so important. And again, getting folks that are on the front lines, these young men and women that are on the front lines living this crisis day in and day out, that type of information is so vital.
They say, don't ask us to talk about it, make us talk about it. That's an interesting point coming from these kids.
I thought something else that they said, and it came up earlier in one of the original presentations, was that they felt that they don't see and hear enough about this crisis. And that sort of floored me, because I feel like most of us probably in this room feel like we hear nothing but information about the crisis. But guys, why did you tell me that you don't see that information about it?
Well, it's just not as popular as, hold on, we got that up next. So I feel like it's not as popular, as marijuana is or other drugs. So like, we don't really hear about opioids. Well, I didn't hear about it until like the summer. I didn't know it was an epidemic. So I guess you can say I was kind of late on that. And I didn't really think that would be like a problem in Manchester. But I mean, that's just me personally.
It's actually a huge problem in Manchester as well as across the country. When we did the summit, and when we go around the country and we ask kids, now I'm a guy that grew up in the streets of Boston. When I say in the streets of Boston, I mean in the streets of Boston. I was homeless by the time I was 12 years old. Okay, I was awarded the state, and I graduated to all of the things that you can imagine in your mind that would happen to a guy that was awarded the state. And I never even heard of a person overdosing and dying until I was well into my 20s. I go to junior high schools now and ask kids, anybody that either knows somebody personally or knows of somebody who's died from an overdose, please raise your hand. And I get 80% of the hands. I mean, we did it at the summit, you and I on the stage.
There's thousands of kids out there, and when you asked that question, I mean, I knew we'd see some hands. Yeah. But that was flooring. It really was.
As a parent, it should scare you to death, right? But as a governor, right, it should, I mean, it's mind-boggling what kids are facing now, right? And you're right, I'm a parent, I have 3 kids. We need to tell our kids. We don't need to ask them. When you say don't ask them if they want to ask questions, you got to tell them. You got to force them to get engaged. Sometimes you have to force your kids to do stuff, folks. I mean, it's just the way it is, right? My kids don't want to do anything unless I force them to do it, right? And when I do, sometimes then they find out that they like what it is that I was trying to force them into, but they need to be pushed. They want to be home sitting on their phone, on social media, right? That's what they want to do. We need to push them. So I think that's a great point that you make, that kids want to be pushed. They want to be pushed. They say they don't, but you're hearing it right here, right? They want to be pushed. They want to be forced to do things that are really good for them, and that may save their life, obviously.
And we're all here tonight because this is a beast of a problem.
Oh my goodness.
And it's not budging.
Jennifer, how do we get that messaging through to you guys? What platform do we best reach you?
So, we're talking about social media. So, no offense to anyone in this room, but...
see, no kids really watch the news unless we're on it.
You guys even watch TV?
On occasions.
But it's all, you're on your phone, right? You're on your phone, you're on your tablet, you're on your computer. And see, when you're on social media and you're on these platforms, you control the news that you're going to get, right? You're going to get, the news you're going to get is related to entertainment and, you know, celebrities and maybe some sports, but it's not the news, right? It's just kind of what's going on socially.
There's so many layers. It's so complex. It's difficult to solve. It's difficult to find any solutions. Every day this is tearing apart lives and families. But the students that you see here tonight, well, they tackled that challenge head on. And the work started long before they got on the stage tonight. They have also spent many hours over the past weekend coming up with their concrete plans. And WMUR's Siobhan Lopez joined them as they did their work.
Each and every teen in this classroom is already a leader, choosing to learn how to take action against the drug crisis in a leadership workshop run by CADCA, Community Anti-Drug Coalition of America.
I've seen it in tough times, and it's in a tough time right now, so I want to see how I can make it better.
I see a lot of drugs personally in my life, you know, but it's just, I don't know, it's like something I can relate to, you know, and if I can help my community by being here, then I'm more than happy to do that.
If not in their neighborhoods, they're seeing drug use at their schools.
I walk into my first class every day and there's kids high, there's kids chewing tobacco.
They'll post videos of them, they'll be smoking weed, doing cocaine, and I just don't think it's right.
Josue Rodriguez, a Central High School freshman, is focusing his energy on sports and staying away from drugs, even though they're all around him.
I won't forget where I came from and like what my parents have taught me. Like even though we were broke at one point, they always were there, you know, and they always talked to me, and that really means a lot to me, you know, and so I don't want to disappoint them. That's really a huge weight on my back that I have to carry.
He, like many others in the leadership training program, look to help their friends they see going down the wrong path.
People always want to just fit in, and that's the sad part, that people can't be themselves because they always want to fit with a crowd.
Ashley Backert, an 8th grader at McLaughlin Middle School, is personally connected. Her older brother is in recovery.
It's really nice. I've kind of embraced it, and I see it a lot in high schools and around the community, and I just want to be a big help and stop the crisis.
DEA 360 sees these students as a valuable tool. They have the knowledge of what's happening around them and know they can make a difference.
I think I'm going to be able to bring back like my experience and like how I could like push it forward and like influence others.
I hope I can bring back more confidence in that I believe in my community that we can solve the problem, starting with us, the youth.
In Manchester, Siobhan Lopez, WMUR News 9.
And now a big welcome to our second group of students here on the stage. Can you both begin by introducing yourselves?
Yeah, hi, I'm Heather McLaughlin. I'm from Goffstown High School.
Hi, I'm Katherine Carlson, also from Goffstown High School. The first strategy we have come up with were more leadership prevention training programs, similar to the ones we experienced at CADCA this past weekend, except I think we should do it in more smaller groups, such as 20 students or less, because that way the students would be able to mix more and socialize more. And when students are socializing more and they don't really know each other, you kind of have to build self-confidence in order to interact with others. And through these like sessions and building self-confidence, they won't turn to drugs as much. Because if you have self-confidence, you won't be turning to drugs to be happy. You would be hanging out with friends and doing sports and extracurricular activities. And one of our good friends has gone through recovery, and there's a quote we like from them, and they said, building confidence to redefine what it means to be cool. And that pretty much means it's not cool to do drugs, because drugs are very bad, and everybody knows that, but students think it's cool to do them, and it's not. And these will help, they will help show that it's not cool, and it's cooler to be with friends.
So the next strategy we have to address the problem is providing support. One of the first things would be talking instead of punishing, because like most of the time when someone gets caught with drugs, they punish them with a detention or a suspension or whatever the case may be. But if we talk to them one-on-one, it will be more helpful to getting to the source of the problem and then maybe trying to help them instead of just saying, here's the detention, don't do it again. Also, a peer-based recovery. So peers, talking one-on-one with a peer would be really helpful in connecting with them and figuring out more into what the problem is. Someone opened up about their peer-based recovery at the Leadership CADCA training program. It's a good friend of ours. His name is Shane. An amazing quote from him is, "Recovery is a battle you face alone at first, but you find strength in others and you find a family." So this shows how peers can form a family and form a sense to make you feel comfortable and help you through recovery. Shane is now 4 years clean. So more one-on-one school counseling. I know, at least for me, my school counselor is amazing. He's really helped me through a lot of stuff. He's sitting over there, but he's amazing, and he helps a bunch of students throughout the school. Providing support can have someone open up to you, and you can see an intel in their life, and this can get the why of the problem. And if you focus on the why, you can find the root of the problem, and this can be one of the first steps to solving the problem.
So with that, should we get over to the amazing guidance counselor, do you think? So John, concerning that, not necessarily detention, but talk to us first.
Yeah. So first of all, I wanted to thank the Goffstown and Manchester kids. They did an amazing job over the weekend with the training, and they're hitting it out of the park right now. So kudos to them for just, you showed up, you stepped up to the plate, and you're just knocking it out of the park. So thank you. As for, and if I can speak a little bit to my role, I wake up every morning wondering who I can empower and encourage that day. Heather is one of my students. Catherine's not, but she's in one of my clubs. And it's conversations with students like Heather, and I'm going to tell a quick little story if I can. Last year I had a 9th grader come, first week of school, came in to introduce herself. Brand new school, brand new student, 9th grader. Cora, she walks in and she just says, "Hi, I'm Cora, I'm going to change the world." She proceeded to spend the entire year mapping out a new club called Generation Prevention Society. I mean, it is what it says it is. Like, she wants to make a difference. Catherine is in that club. That club is now merged with our peer outreach club, where I'm an advisor, co-advisor. And when kids like that have the courage to come to their counselor and say, "I want to make a difference in the world, can you help me?" It's really easy to say yes. So for us to listen and not punish, to encourage kids who are making healthy decisions. If I could speak to Catherine's point earlier, we need mentoring training, and CADCA did a fantastic job with the weekend training. But if we could get mentoring training where we're working with our older kids who are making good decisions, healthy choices, doing things like being a part of a generation that wants to make good decisions, to help those younger kids also make good decisions would be a great, great thing if we could make that happen.
And Dr. Harrison, on that note, leadership skills, mentorship, self-confidence, one of those points that the students brought up, that you have to really nurture that from the time that they're young, and especially when they're young adults.
I think that's true. First of all, since we're recognizing people, I want to recognize real quick Ms. Aurelia Fernandez, who is our CADCA Youth Leadership Director, and the great team of youth that came and actually did the training. I know they enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed that a lot. The theme of CADCA's Youth Leadership Development Program is engage, develop, and inspire. And so my question for the two ladies here is, you know, remember that Aurelia and that team, the first sessions was about what? Leadership, wasn't it?
Yes.
So, not trying to put you on the spot, but if you can reflect back on what those leader attributes were that Aurelia asked you to learn about, was there one in particular that appealed to you, or you feel you'll be able to use most effectively in the future?
Well, I learned a lot of stuff at the training sessions, and I think one of the ones, because we learned multiple characteristic traits of being a leader, and I think the one that sticks in my head mostly is having a vision. And a vision is like seeing something in the future and making a change to make that happen. And I feel I can have a part of a greater vision, maybe not my own, but maybe the nation's vision to get rid of this drug problem, and my doing part of it will help that greater vision become a success.
I think it's hard to choose one. They all create an amazing leader. The one that stood out to me was determination, not only because that's the one we made a poster about, but because determination is what you need. If without the determination, you can just sit there on the couch and say, I want to do this, but it's too far away. With determination, you'll get up, you'll go get what you need, you reach your goal. You know, it's just something that really takes a turn. Like getting up here on stage, this was a determination. Being here talking to you guys about this problem.
Right, pushing through the struggles to make everything happen.
And that's really, John, when you talk to these young adults, pushing through, determination, but also bringing other people into your vision.
Absolutely.
Building your team.
We want, you know, listen, in the law enforcement circles, we're building coalitions better than ever before for the greater good of the state. But these kids are building coalitions. When I watched them interact with each other, they came in as individuals. They became one big happy group that was in there. And it was amazing to see how that developed. And they interacted the whole time. And they're still doing. They set up their own social media site that they're sharing ideas throughout the last few days and into the evening, late hours, to prepare to be here today. It's amazing.
Jim, the impact of these large-scale presentations, too, and I know that you go around the country and you talk to these young kids, they tell us directly that's having an impact. That's making a difference. What is it about you and your story on a stage talking to these kids that's getting through?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm humbled by the fact that we're having an impact, you know. I don't know. I think it's really empowering the young people, right? I'm convinced that the solution to this problem, or a huge portion of the solution to this problem, is right here in front of us. This is where it starts. We have to have our young people thinking a different way. We have to have them thinking a healthy way and making healthy choices and making good, solid choices for their lives, right? And we talk a lot about using peer pressure as a positive thing, right? Influencing other kids to make healthy choices. I think they're the key to beating this thing, right? We have lost so many young people, and I'm so impressed. I can't even tell you how impressed I am with these young people that have been up here. Governor, if I was you, I'd be really like, these are my kids from my schools, right? I'm very impressed, and this is where it begins, right here, with these young people. When they leave here after this is over and they go back to school and they've taken all that they've learned and put it into action, right? So I don't know what it is about, I don't know if it's anything about me, right? It's the message, and they're looking for the message. They want to hear a message. They're looking for a message of hope, and they're looking for direction. They're just looking for somebody to step up and give it to them. And
Right.
there's a big team of people that are involved in this process. It's certainly not just me. I don't know what it is. It probably has to do with the fact that my last name is Wahlberg, and that they're, you know, and there's a bunch of famous people in my family. They know my mother from TV. Like, I don't know. But I know that when we go places, the conversations we have are meaningful and they're deep. And the younger the kids, the more meaningful and deep the conversation is.
And Governor, it's not just a celebrity presence, it's the presence in their school, it's the presence in their home. So do you feel as compelled as everyone else that the crisis needs the next generation to jump in and help solve it?
It's the only way it gets solved. You could throw all the money in the world at this problem and build all the recovery and treatment centers, and those are critically important to getting services. But this is a crisis that will go on for years. Unfortunately, we know that. So we have to start making headway. So, I mean, one thing I try to do is, whatever we do, we have to build foundations, long-term lasting foundations. And obviously it starts with the youth, right? They're in the front line of it, unlike a lot of us. We see it from afar. We're working our best to deal with it from afar. But they're on the front lines of it. They understand it better than I think a lot of us do in many aspects. And they're the ones that, if we lay that foundation, and I just want to go back to something. I think it's so critical what you brought up, what I think a lot of us are talking about here. Transparency. talking about it, no judgment, being able to open up and really talk about it. That's how you get the value of these peer-based recovery support systems. And in doing that, and taking away, you know, I hate even using the word stigma, right? But by taking that away, by allowing people the freedom to talk about it, it allows information to kind of travel back and forth, and people can just understand where the resources need to go and what the next steps are.
Okay. Girls, thank you. Panel, I'm going to have you stand by. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, our next student groups will be here on the stage with us.